All right, thank you. Sarah, if we could get a roll call
Sure. Samples,
here.
Hamer,
Aye.
Worski,
Aye.
Lombardo,
Here.
McKittrick.
Aye.
All committee members are present.
All right, thank you. If I could get approval of our previous meeting minutes.
I'll make the motion for approval of last meeting minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have two pieces before us. The first one is ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service after publicly advertised bids to enter into a contract or contracts for the construction of site improvements at Mason Park and declaring an emergency. Mr. Lettle?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of committee. This is our annual resurfacing program. This will allow us to enter in a contract for the resurfacing. You will see a few other pieces of legislation coming in once we have the assessment equalization board hearings. If we have any objections, we will go through those, and then you will get those pieces of legislation in a few weeks, and then we will start the program. As you know, and you've heard, this is one of our largest resurfacing programs that we have ever done. So with the carryover from last year that we pulled back on the budget, and then we did have some other monies from issue 4 that were carried over from 2018 and 2019. So our budget this year is just roughly around $11 million. So with issue 4, since the passage of that by Mayor Horgan, we were doing around 54 miles a year. Well, this year we are going to do 85 center line miles throughout the city. And all of you have seen your list in your ward, which is quite extensive. So this is going to bring up, and we're always trying to raise the level of our pavement condition index throughout the city. So our goal is to raise it to 75, which is good. And our pothole numbers keep dropping. We did have a mild winter, but
Hey, Chris,
we had a little snow the other day even. So,
Chris, I don't want to interrupt you. I think you're on the wrong piece. We're on Mason. And you're,
I thought you said resurfacing.
so we're doing,
I'm sorry.
now that's okay.
Okay, so Mason, there's 2 ball fields at Mason that were underused, and we are going to turn those into a football field / multi-purpose field. Those fields were very uneven, very poor condition. So with this piece, we just advertised it on our new program to attract some small business contractors. So we're going to convert those softball fields / baseball fields into a football / soccer field. We also are going to redo the walking track around the park in this legislation.
Okay, great, awesome. Are there any questions from committee members? Are there any questions from council members? Wait, Councilman Lombardo?
Okay, I'm coming. Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Mr. Luddle, I was confused at the beginning when we were talking about resurfacing, but now that we're back on, that's okay. But now that we're back on Mason, so did I miss that this piece of legislation, it's calling for an estimated project cost of like 175,000?
176,000, that's correct.
Sure. So this is being paid for out of like what budget, or is it, it's not one of the issues?
I believe this was. I think it's just general obligation. It was in the budget, yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from committee or council members? I'm not seeing any. I just want to thank you, Chris. I know we have been going back and forth and working on Mason for quite some time, trying to get it ready for the young football team that has been using it over the years. So I really appreciate you getting on this and making sure that it happens. So is consent okay? Or
Consent's fine because we just started advertising. And if I could add one more thing, Madam Chair,
yes,
Lane Field will be next. We're finishing the design, and I know our council president, Ms. Somerville's been very interested in that project. So that's coming next, where we're going to take those two smaller ball fields and remove them and then install a new multi-purpose field at that location also. So that'll be the next piece that we get out for bid, but it's gonna be a little bit, maybe in a few weeks to a month before we get that before you guys.
okay, all right, thank you. Could I get a motion for consent?
I'll make a motion for consent. I'm sorry, I did have a late question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead,
First.
Councilman Lotto.
And really, Mr. Luddle touched on it. So is this part of the same like budget line item, like you did Patterson Park, converting some field into a big football and soccer field? Is this part of the same like line item on that? That's my first question. And then the second question, you said you went on to Lane Field, that could be next. So my second question would be, as far as Patterson Park Sports Complex, was there any ideas there converting some of the unused baseball fields into some type of soccer field there? Thank you.
The Patterson Park Community Center, last year we removed the backstop and we did some regrading and reseeding down there. That was at the community center at 500 Patterson Avenue. You're talking about the Patterson Park Sports Complex, which is 955 Patterson Avenue. We haven't really had that discussion, but that is probably something that we could have in the future. If we did anything there, Councilman, we would definitely get the input of the community. But it would probably be the two fields that parallel Cauga Falls Avenue.
Right.
Because in the original plans, that was going to be a football field when you get looking back 20 years ago.
Right. So is this part of the same like budget, that same line item will?
We didn't have anything in the budget to do anything at Patterson Sports Complex this year. No, we did not put anything in the budget for 2021.
Yeah.
But it would still be general obligation.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I can make a motion now for consent agenda if that's his pleasure.
Okay.
Second.
Have a second, have a motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and we have one more piece. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into a contract or contracts for publicly advertising for bids for the purchase and application of asphalt, concrete pavement removal, riser rings, micro surfacing, partial depth resurfacing, and preventative maintenance for various streets in the 2021 resurfacing program, including alternates and approving specifications, therefore, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Leto?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are you going to make me repeat all that again?
No, I'm not.
I'm sorry about that.
That's
So, as I said before, Council, this is our biggest, our program that we've ever done. They've already started from the carryover. As you've seen in some of your wards are out there paving. Right now, they actually have a crew out on the airport. Councilman McKittrick has probably seen them out there at the airport. So our airport was shut down for 28 days, but last week obviously was not a very good week, but they're going great guns this week. So, but they are resurfacing some of the carryover in this program. You will see them sometime early in June, continuing on to get the 85 miles. We're very excited about this year's resurfacing.
Yes, this list is wonderful, Chris. I appreciate it. It definitely keeps the residents off our backs a little bit anyways, at least for now. Councilman Lombardo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, two questions. Sorry, two questions for Mr. Luddle. The first is, you mentioned earlier about raising the grade, I guess, from a 75. I might not have that right, but can you explain, like, and maybe you can give me a Ward 2 example of a street, and I don't know what the rating goes from 1 to 100. I don't know, but can you kind of give me a little education on how a street is graded and what that might mean for a street to be considered that, you know, to go on the paving list? That would be my first question. Go ahead.
Well, we have a third party that looks at our streets, and they assess every section of every segment of streets every 3 years. So it's on a 3-year rotation. And I'm sure you're familiar with Creighton on the
Yes.
north end from Briding. Okay.
Yes.
That the 0 to 20 would be, you know, failed, and then poor. You know, we have very poor, fair, good. And then when a street is repaved, once we're done with all our inspections and we accept it, then it's excellent. That's 100. So it's 0 to 100. But that section of Creighton, Mr. Hall's on here, but I would assume that section of Creighton is probably about a 16 or a 17. So when they mill that off and they repave it this year, it will go to 100. So what we're trying to do is get everything up in the 70s. And when you have everything in the 70s, you might have some minor alligator cracking. You see the minor cracks that we crack seal, but you won't see any holes in the street. And that's what our goal is, to raise that level and to maintain that level. And without issue 4, we would have never got there. I mean, Mayor Horgan came in and he looked at the state of the streets. You know, they were saying you're going to need $10 million for 10 years. Well, with the aggressive program we had and some of the preventive maintenance things we've done, we've extended the life of some of these. So that's our goal, to get everything up in the good range, which is around a 70 rating, sir.
Right. That's good. That's good. So my second question is, and I've said this before in council meetings, I'm going to assume that if we looked at all of Akron streets, 85% of them are asphalt. 10% of them have a concrete slab, and then 5% are brick. So how much are we hedging, I guess you could say, on different concrete streets like an Independence? And how much are we hedging on a brick street like a Murray and Mount Vernon? I know that we have some sewer work going on, so that's going to play into it, but I'm sure we're looking at it, but can you just enlighten us on that process? Thank
Sure.
you.
With some of the monies this year in the budget, we're going to do some concrete slab repairs. So when you talk about Independence, if you remember when Cauga Falls did Howe Avenue, they came in and they spent some money on our streets because it was the detour. So they went and removed large sections of the concrete that was really failed and replaced just slabs of concrete. And we're going to do that throughout all 10 wards this year with some areas, and do some slab repairs, I should say. But to really, when you go to rebuild a road, it needs to be completely removed. Okay, remove all the concrete, rebuild the base, and when you're there, you're going to get rid of all the lead services. So it's not just to give you an example, and Councilman Swirsky can remember this. When we did Aqueduct, it was $1 million. Okay, just to do a mile of road. Okay, to totally tear it out and rebuild it. Now that wasn't concrete. All right, that was asphalt, but we totally rebuilt the road. So in this budget, there's not monies to replace total concrete streets. When we do that, we go after OPWC money, we go after grant monies to do those things. And at that point, we will look at some of these streets and say, should they go back concrete? You know, do they have the same truck traffic? I mean, when that street was built, you know, 50, 60, 100 years ago, should it still be concrete? I would imagine if we ever redid that section of concrete on Patterson Avenue, which you're familiar with,
Yes.
We would probably remove it all and then, because it's asphalt on each end, we would
Yes.
probably remove that, but that's still rebuilding the road. That's a different assessment. That's like a separate project in itself. So what we're going to try to do with this concrete street money is just do some specific slab repairs throughout. Now, when it comes to brick streets, to put it back brick is very, very expensive. Okay. And the brick street, the brick on Mount Vernon, I'm going to tell you right now, is different than the brick in Ward 1. And it's different than the brick in Ward 3. The time of year they put them in. So it's not like you have a stockpile of bricks. When we looked at doing a project on Mayfield, I mean, we talked about, oh my goodness, we're going to have to we start removing this brick, we're going to have to rebuild the whole street. So we changed the sewer project. We did a few minor repairs to try to take out some of the depressions to try to rebuild the road. But we're putting a project right now on Mall Avenue. That street's so far gone. It's like, you know, it looks like hills and valleys, and Councilman Malik could attest to that. We're putting together a project with OPWC to totally rebuild that, but it's gonna be expensive to rebuild that road. Okay, so we can't take this money and do one street a year. That would not be sustainable. But that's
Right.
that's how we're gonna go after this with the concrete street money, is we're gonna look and try to do slab repairs on the worst sections of the street.
Okay, so I know you guys know what you're doing, but my question is, like what I'm hearing, you know, a slab repair like on Patterson Avenue, I mean, is it worth it to do that as opposed to just that Patterson Avenue section, just to dig it all up and then put asphalt down? I mean, I'm hearing slab repair, but I'm kind of confused on, I know you know what you're doing, but
Well,
you understand what I'm questioning?
Patterson is a bad example because that's
Okay.
asphalt on both ends. We
Yes.
need to look at that, about removing that and putting back asphalt and putting together a project.
Okay,
Independent, it's all concrete.
yes,
So what they did, now if we go in and spend another 30 or 40,000 to replace some of those worst, really bad slabs, then it's not as bad.
Okay.
Briding, there's another section of briding. Should we look at it's asphalt on one end, it's brick on the other. Should we,
Right.
not brick, but concrete?
Right.
That's
Right.
another one, but it'd be a separate project in itself. That would be handled through engineering.
okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions from committee or council members? I'm not seeing any. Chris, what's your pleasure?
Consent's fine because, we have the future legislation before we can start before we start the project. So
Right, okay.
consent's fine on this.
Okay, can I get a motion for consent?
I'll make that motion for consent.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, and we have nothing else coming before us, so we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Malik, and McKittrick. All committee members are present. Are you ready, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Sarah, thank you. I'd like to call the public safety meeting to order, please. All members are present. We did hold a meeting last week. Can I get approval of those minutes, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Moving forward, we do have one old piece that is a substitute, and we have one new piece. Sarah, could you read in, if you have it in front of you, the old piece, please, the substitute?
This is a substitute offered as an amendment offered by Councilwoman Samples, Councilman Malik, Councilman Neal, and Councilwoman Amobian. Resolution supporting HR 1280, known as the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act of 2021, and urging its passage by the U.S. Senate and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. I guess I'll first see if Councilwoman Samples wants to lead with any conversation, because she was the previous sponsor of the old piece.
Thank you, Chairman Kamer. Yes, the only amendment to this is a point that was brought up in our last meeting, and it was about the body cameras and making sure that body cameras were required by by all state and local police officers. So that is the only change to the resolution. And I will yield back to the chairman or any of the other co-sponsors.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I appreciate that. Let me see if anybody else wants to speak. We do have Councilman Malik, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to briefly speak to the importance of this resolution. You know, over the generations, many folks have worked to improve policing in the United States and locally, particularly in how law enforcement interacts with our Black communities. This has been the work of activists, of lawyers, of legislators, and an awful lot of law enforcement officers. And as the events of the last year have shown all of us, nationally and locally, that work is incomplete. We have seen in recent years and in recent weeks terrible instances of violence, unjustified violence against Black people. And we have seen that change happens very slowly, very incrementally. Now, this bill that's come before Congress is not perfect. There are some aspects that some may think go too far. There are some parts of it that do not go far enough, but it would be a huge step forward. It's received the support of a majority of the US House of Representatives. It's received the support of the President of the United States. Our problems here in Akron will not be solved by this resolution. That work will continue and will require all of us. But our constituents should know that we support this legislation, that we are willing to acknowledge the scope of the problem and the solution. Only then will we be able to make the change that's needed here in Akron.
Thank you, Councilman. I'm looking at the hands raised function. Anyone else from the committee wants to speak or make a comment? All right, moving on to any other council members. All right, I don't see any. I'll start with Councilwoman Samples. I'll call on you. What are the wishes?
Yes, a wish is to motion to suspend the rules with a favorable report.
Thank you. Are you making that motion?
Yes, I am.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, so that will pass on to this evening's meeting. Thank you. Moving on to the new item we do have for public safety. Ordinance authorizing the mayor to apply for and if awarded, accept a Violence Against Women Act grant administered by the Office of Criminal Justice Services, authorizing the Director of Law to enter an agreement with the Oriana House, Inc. to implement the grant by continuing to fund 2 investigators for the Domestic Violence Unit and declare an emergency. And who do we have with us today to speak on this? We have our City Prosecutor, Gert Whelms. Welcome.
Hi, Chair Kammer and Gert Whelms, the Akron City Prosecutor. This is an ongoing grant. I'm going to take a broad guess and say we've had this grant for over 20 years. We use it to partially fund our 2 investigators with our law department here, the police department, 2 former detectives with the Akron Police Department, Marcus Miller, over 30 years with the police department, and Johnny Bell, who left, retired from the Akron Police Department, was in the persons unit for years. So we're just asking for this one, the VAWA grant, to continue, and the contract with Oriana to continue their employment and their relationship with our office.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. Nice seeing you. I'm glad to see you.
You too.
Let's see if we have any questions for you from committee members first. We do have Councilman Malik. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Whelms, thank you for bringing this before us. Can you just kind of speak briefly to what we're seeing in terms of domestic violence statistics in Akron over the last year with COVID?
The statistics have been pretty constant from what we've seen the last 5 years because overall crime statistics are down. It's a bigger percentage overall, but basically the domestic violence has remained pretty constant for the last 5 years we are seeing.
So we haven't seen a significant uptick over the last year?
No, and it reports out that there is an increase just because the overall numbers are down. So that's where some of the miscommunication has come in. I've asked Jim Larry's office for our most recent stats, but just with what we're doing daily, it's been very consistent.
Sure. And if, just one follow-up question, if money were not a problem, how would you want to tackle this problem even more beyond the 2 investigators?
It would be delightful if we actually had unlimited funds to redo a prosecutor position. When I started with this office, we had 3 more staff attorneys than we currently have, and 1 more investigator than I currently have, 3 more support staff than I currently have, and 8 interns, which I currently have none. So if I have unlimited resources, we definitely would like to staff up, but a goal of mine's always just been to replace that prosecutor position that we lost. It's how I originally, got so involved in this, was the domestic violence prosecutor for about 5 years before I got promoted to chief. And just the cuts we took in 2008 have prevented us from re-upping that position over the years.
Really appreciate that information.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other committee members? All right, moving on. Council members. All right, I don't see any. Gert, what is your pleasure? Consent agenda, okay?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll make that motion for consent agenda. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. Thanks. Before we adjourn, I just want to let all my colleagues know this is Police Memorial Week. With that, we're adjourned. Thanks.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I can note, I think just wanted to point out in that same vein, the annual police memorial service is going to be at 11 a.m. on Wednesday. So for those who are able to make it,
Where
Yes.
will it be? Where will it be?
it's at the Union Lodge there in South Akron.
Yeah. Cool place.
And
Cool
everyone,
place.
I think we all received an email, but I just wanted to mention that again.
Yeah, good, good.
Yes. Thank you for
Ooh,
bringing that.
I need a list of like everyone though.
Anything else, Sarah? Oh,
No,
okay.
nothing from me.
Okay, thanks. All right, with
Okay.
that, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Going to let everybody know that our next committee of the day is the Housing and Neighborhood Assistance Committee, and that will begin at 3:15. Those committee members are Fusco, Swirsky, Samples, McKittrick, and Connor. And again, that'll be at 3:15. So we'll stop the live stream and be back then. Thank you.